Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast. They can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify. You name it, you're going to be able to find us. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my lovely studio in downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, and she is La Bourgeois. And La, you can wave to all your friends who are watching this. Okay, you can wave to everybody. You want to wave to everybody, say hello to them. And that's La. And La, as you'll see, is an amazing woman who wears many hats. As the social media and marketing consultant for a really cool place called the Weaveville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. She's also a writer and creativity coach. And you can find her writing at Mountain Express here in Asheville, also with Our Front magazine. And the question I ask La the first time I meet a guest is, in terms of growing up, where did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up in Arkansas.
Okay. And when you were a girl growing up in Arkansas, a young woman in Arkansas, did you always know you wanted to be this woman who wears many hats and this writer, creativity guru? Did you always know you wanted to do that?
You know, I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I'm not sure that the creativity coach thing existed back when I was growing up, but I always wanted to be a creative and always worked in creative things like writing and played with all kinds of creative toys like yarn, as you can see behind me, and just had a good time playing around and acting, just crafting, doing stuff like that. Creativity has always been a really important part of my life.
Let's talk about the writing. Do you remember the first thing you ever wrote that got published?
The first thing I ever wrote that got published was a little story that I wrote that was lightly based on a high school romance. And it was about this high school girl and her boyfriend, and him taking her out on the late night Arkansan highways to go what he called possum hunting. Okay. Which was spotlighting possums in his pickup truck and hitting them in the road.
Oh, is this something you actually did?
This was something I heard about. I did not actually do it. If a boyfriend had taken me out to do this, that would have been the last night that we were.
Well, now, they used to call it in New York, they called it submarine race watching. You know, when people would go parking on the parkway or something. But was this now published, this story?
This story got published in a tiny literary magazine back in the early 90s, and really, like, I think it printed maybe like 10 copies and folded. Like, well, it's just not, it doesn't even exist anymore.
A question: did you get paid for it?
No.
Well, no. And the question is, do you remember the first writing you ever got paid for?
First writing I ever got paid for, I would say the first writing I ever got paid for, I wrote a piece for knitting magazine, actually, called Spin-Off.
Okay.
And that was, I created a knitting pattern and wrote a piece that went with it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was in my 40s.
Very nice. No time like the present to start. But I'm looking, I don't see in the background, I don't see that check framed. You didn't frame it, you know, the very first time.
I cashed that thing.
No, but that's pretty exciting though. So to get published at the age of 40 for the first time, and that got you more into writing and decided you want to do more of it?
Yes, I'd always wanted to write. And that was just one more step in my career towards being a writer. So I actually didn't go full time as a writer until after I was 50.
Okay, very exciting. Now so the writing you do, well, let's talk a little bit about the writing aside from the work you do for the center. You also, write for Mountain Express. You said, you mentioned you write for another magazine. What kind of writing do you do for them?
So I also write for Out Front magazine. It's a magazine out of Colorado and talks to people in the queer community, LGBTQIA plus community. And what I do for them is I write lightly humorous, hopefully delightful essays about my life. And I do that under an area of my writing that's very personal to me that I call the Diary of a Lesbian Housewife.
How cool is that? So how long have you been writing for them?
I've been writing for them since February of this year.
Oh, it just started. So now,
Yeah.
the exciting thing, so now we're collecting these, and this is going to be your first book?
Yes, actually, I am planning on writing a memoir of this past year, which has been crazy, and doing that in 2023.
Well, you know, what's exciting about what you're saying is something I encourage folks to do in terms of, you say, write a book. Well, that's a big job. But if you do it in small chunks, you know, like I'm even suggesting sort of what you do is a way to do it. You know, so you have each month, whatever is a chapter or part of it, and then you put it together. Then it becomes easy to put together the book. When you write the book, will you be taking some of these things you've written for the magazine?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be using pieces that I write for that magazine. And then I also send out an essay every week in a newsletter that I send out. And you can get on that newsletter going to my housewife website, which is housewife with a Y, so HOUSEWYFE.com.
Okay, very cool. And so people can sign up for that. There's no cost to sign up for it?
There's no cost. There's no nothing. You just sign up for it. It's free. And then all you have to do is, what I would love it if you would, share it with your friends. And then also write to me and let me know what you think, because that's a way that I test out these essays and different ideas as I'm getting ready to send them off to Outfront or share them in other places.
Very cool. So how many you've been doing that since February, is it, of this year or last year? Okay.
This year.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So what's been the reaction to people reading it or seeing it?
People tend to like them, which is nice.
Yeah.
And sometimes they laugh, sometimes they write to me and say, I'm so glad that you covered this subject, because I like to try to bring things into the light and start conversations about difficult subjects. And because I think that difficult subjects are easier to absorb when you approach them with delight and humor and creativity.
Yeah, I love it. And talk about then, so you're writing that in addition to also writing for Mountain Express. What do you write? What do you do for them?
So for Mountain Express, I mainly write Q&A pieces. So I get to basically talk to super interesting people and then take that conversation, translate it onto the page, and deliver it to the readers of Mountain Express. And it's amazing the people that I've met in doing this work. And I've been doing that. I started with Mountain Express around the same time that I started with Outfront. Yeah, and it's been amazing. I mean, I got to meet this fabulous woman who went on this journey of discovery about her father because she and her sister were kind of bored during COVID. So they decided to look up their father's military records, and it ended up with her getting awarded a Congressional Gold Medal in his honor.
Wow, how cool is that? Yeah.
Isn't it? Her name was Robin Lake. You can find that on the Mountain Express website.
And I think I remember reading that it was a big feature. They had her picture was in it too. Yeah, it was I do remember reading because it was such a cool idea, that who would have thunk a woman writing about her father would find that much out. And so how'd she get the congressional recognition? How'd that happen?
So what happened was her father was actually a member of the Montford Point Marines.
Okay.
And they were a part of the Marines, the first African-American Marine troops. They all signed up for World War II, and they trained at Camp Montford Point, which is very near, it's like adjacent to Camp Lejeune. And when she found out all of this information about her father, she found out that he was a member of this group.
And she didn't know that?
She did not know that.
Wow. Yeah.
She just knew he was a Marine who had served in the Pacific in World War II.
Yeah.
And then everything else came to light And he had actually had some, of course, heroic feats that we did not cover in the article. I didn't get into that because there's just not a lot of time to mess around with stuff like that.
I was going to say,
But she ended up, they invited her to this award ceremony. And I think that they try to give this award to the families and also the anybody who's still alive who served in that squadron, because they did amazing work. You know, they were fighting the war in the Pacific. They were fighting this war of racism on the home front and really pushed through unimaginable odds to become soldiers.
Was the father still alive?
No.
Okay. Because one of the beautiful things about that story, just listening to it, is that many people, myself included, know nothing about their father's wartime service. You know, so to hear this, I wish I'd, known my father's stories, but I never heard them. You know, so you gave this woman or women a chance to tell this, have this story told. What a beautiful tribute to the father. You know,
absolutely.
Well, it's giving me an idea here though for you, and that'll become then your second book. You know, because doesn't it sound like a fantastic story? And we'll take, yeah.
It does, and every single person that I talk to has these amazing stories. A book that I would love to do would be to take these stories of these people that I've written about,
right,
and then put them into a book with reflections of interesting ways that that could affect your life, lessons that you learned. Like this woman, she was just curious.
Right.
Where your curiosity can lead you.
I just love the story. And I also see for you, we'll take from the book, then we'll make it into the movie. You know, so we'll take it from the book to the movie, you know, where it's going to take us to, just from an idea you heard on Blaine's World, you know, from who knows. But I love that story. Give me one example of one other person you interviewed. Everybody has a story. Give me an example of another story you did recently.
Another story is, so I talked to just recently, I got to talk to a bunch of people who've done nonprofits.
Right.
And I spoke to this gentleman who is this really amazing guy. His name's Alfred Green, and he created a nonprofit called Young Struggle. Young Struggle is an organization that he put together for young men who are growing up, or young people really, who are growing up in underserved populations, for sure, mainly focusing on African Americans. And he put together a chess tournament this past September at Hillcrest Apartments and really celebrated these kids who came in to play chess. And all of these people came in to be with him and to support him. So Keenan Lake from My Daddy Taught Me That showed up, and Quentin Miller showed up to show support from the police department. It was a really cool event, and this guy is an amazing guy. What he did was he was in prison. He had been put in prison. I don't know why. He wouldn't tell me, and that's fine. Right. But he was in prison, and during his prison time, what he realized was that there were a lot of people who were saying all of the things that were wrong, and nobody's saying anything about what was going right. Like this guy got his GED. Nobody said, "Hey, congratulations on getting your GED." They were like, "Oh, did you know your cousin went to jail last week?" Or this bad thing happened to your sister, or whatever. But they weren't focusing on the positive. And he took this situation, which could be an awful bad situation, and turned it into this amazing positive thing. And that is his goal, is to bring positive love, light, happiness, encouragement into the world.
Were you at the chess tournament?
I did not get to go to the chess tournament.
Next year.
But it looked like an amazing event.
Yeah. It just sounds it, and where I love what you're doing, and I try to do it. I don't know if as successfully as you, but just to find stories that people have and to share them with others. How do you get, if somebody has an idea for your column or somebody knows somebody they'd like to have profiled on it, do you take suggestions, or how do you find names for people to write about?
I definitely, if somebody wants to send me a suggestion, I would love to hear one. And they can send it to me at my email address, which at my more businessy email address,
Okay.
which is LA at La Bourgeois, which is LABOURGEOIS.biz. So law at labourgeois.biz. And they could send it to me. They can also send it over to Thomas Calder, the editor at Mountain Express, and you can get a hold of him at news@mountainx.com.
Okay.
And they will send those on.
Well, and so the question is, so do you welcome people to submit their ideas?
Absolutely.
If you don't get names, how do you get the ideas for the stories?
So people send in information all the time. So it comes from me sometimes it comes from other writers at the paper. A lot of times something will come in to that news address or to another place, and it'll come up to Thomas, and then he'll talk to me about it and ask me to write a piece on this person. Most of my stuff comes from him just saying, hey, look, here's this person.
But isn't it cool that what you're doing is just to speak to different people, I guess, and find that they all have a story to tell?
Everybody has a story, and everybody has an interesting story.
Yeah.
That's really the amazing part of it, is there are people out there who think my life isn't that interesting, it's not that cool. And I'm telling you, there are so many cool things that happen to people that we just don't know about.
Well, and I guess that's where your writing ability comes in, but I guess that's also where your creativity comes in. And let's talk a little bit about that. How did you, I guess, find out or discover that, hey, you were a pretty cool creative person? I mean, did it just hit you at some point in time, or you just always thought you were pretty creative?
I just always loved playing with creative things and playing with my creativity. My mother was an elementary music teacher. And so we always had music in our household, and we always had a lot of creativity around us. She made sure that we had toys that really helped us to unlock that creativity. It was always paints and chalk, and even I remember one time when we got in big trouble because we were painting with mud.
You remember that? I probably remember that story. But it's funny what you're saying, and that's, I guess, where your mother comes into play or your teachers come into play. Because I had just the opposite experience, and you've heard stories like this. But I remember when I was a kid, I used to like to draw and paint, sort of like you did, right? And then all of a sudden, I get an assignment from an art teacher, and I spend the whole weekend on it. Color, paint, cut, all this stuff. And I turned it in, and she laughed at it. I think that was the last time I ever picked up a crayon.
Oh,
And I have other stories like that. But it's a shame, isn't it, that we don't encourage people to be creative?
yes.
And that's a perfect segue to, I guess, another job you have in your spare time. I guess, what do you have, like roller skates, so you can get from one thing to another? These
Thank
different
goodness
things.
for Zoom. That's all I'll say about that.
I'm sorry, what?
Thank goodness for Zoom.
Oh, Zoom. Well, talk to me about that. So how do you all of a sudden then get involved, I guess fairly recently, with it's, I'll try to get the title. It's Weaveville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. Great title for a place. How do you get involved with them?
So I got involved with them. I found out about them when they were actually even before they started. So I went to a business mixer where Tom and Brian came, and Tom's talked about the center. And just thought it was such a cool idea. And I loved the fact that they were incorporating creativity into the idea of healthy living, because creativity, our souls, our hearts, our minds, they're all part of creating a healthy person. And so I was very intrigued by that. And when I saw what they were starting to do, I said, these people have to be able to get out there and get found. And I said, I can do newsletters. I'm going to write to them. So I wrote and I volunteered to create and manage their newsletter.
And by the way, we'll give a shout out by Tom. You mentioned Tom's last name as well.
That's right. Tom Balistrieri, he is the board chairperson, and he is the guy who gets out there and he makes it happen. He's the guy who sets up the chairs and schedules everything, and he's doing this completely on a volunteer basis, and it is his passion.
And for those folks who haven't discovered the center yet, and we'll encourage them to get there, talk about, first of all, where it is and what does it do?
So the programming right now is exclusively in the Weaverville Community Center, and they do all kinds of stuff, but basically they schedule classes and fun groups. There are ladies who come in to play mahjong and bridge and canasta on a weekly basis. There's stuff for your body. So we have yoga and tai chi and dance. And now I'm just sort of, you can see the Rolodex in my mind. I still have a Rolodex because I'm in my 50s, right? So there's that. There are also theatrical performances. This past weekend, we just had a theatrical performance of Love, Loss, and What I Wore by Delia and Nora Ephron.
By the way, did you get to see it?
I did not get to see it, but I heard amazing things, and there were over 90 people who came.
A bunch of my favorite people were in it. It's just a great production. I didn't get to see it. We mentioned the other one. I don't know if you got to this one. What was the Valentine's Day one? Were you at that one?
I was not, but there's one coming up. So they're doing another Reader's Theater production of a play by A.R. Gurney called Ancestral Voices, and that's going to happen in December.
Okay. Also, I'm very excited. You also booked one of my favorite local groups, Tumo Coors. And I don't know if you have the date handy. Do you have the date handy there?
Yes, it's December 2nd. Okay. Is when that's happening.
And again, I think it's
that's at 7 o'clock at the Weaverville Community Center.
And just to give a plug for them, I just encourage people to try to get to their performance. It's just a fantastic local group. And the amazing thing, talk a little bit about this as well, if you would, La, the fact that people can come there and they don't have to pay anything. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is no cost to any of our performances, classes, anything.
Okay, and the nice thing also, thanks to Tom and you and all the other people there, you also, there's not only a cost, it's also not open to just Weaverville. People from anywhere in the area can come to these. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. It's just I mean, you have to see the facility to believe it. You know, the very first time I saw it, I said, whoa,
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. And it's and so the people, so to get 90 people at a concert, free concert, you know, you're just getting them, running them repeatedly. That's pretty exciting stuff. Yeah. Anything else coming up there that, you know, where we can talk about? You mentioned the upcoming show. Yeah.
So we have we have those things in December. We also have the December 9th, the Candlelight Stroll. It's happening on downtown Weaverville. And then there's going to be a trolley that takes people back and forth from Main Street up to the community center, where there's going to be, you know, treats, and there'll be some music and maybe some storytelling. It's all going to be just kind of a fun little time. So the community center is getting into the action of the Candlelight Stroll. And in 2023, we have some really cool stuff going on. January 6th, we have a music concert that's being done by the people who do the Mountain Music Jam, which is an ongoing concert being done by local musicians who just come together to jam every once in a while. And January 6th, we're actually going to be doing a concert to honor Earl Scruggs.
Okay, nice.
Which is going to be great. And lots of storytelling going on at the center. There's going to be a love themed storytelling concert in February, and some fabulous storytelling concert in April.
And talk also, I don't know if you met him yet, but a good friend of mine, Chuck Fink, does a lot of storytelling. Is he in charge of that, or he just runs some of the events?
He is so his pretty much he and Jill Totman are the champions of the storytelling efforts that are going on down at the center, and they've got some really amazing stuff lined up.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If folks want to find out more about either some of the things you mentioned or in general to find out what the center is up to, what's their best bet?
Their best bet is to check out our Facebook page, and you can do that at facebook.com/WCCHL. You can also sign up for the newsletter from there, which is just a sign up from that page. I have a little post that's up that you can go and find it. And that's a really cool way to keep up, because then all the information comes directly into your mailbox. And we send out newsletters twice a month, one giving just the general calendar, and then the second one focusing on special events that are happening in the next month.
And if you would just mention the best way to sign up for that newsletter.
Best way to sign up for that newsletter is to go over to our Facebook page, and there's a post there. You can also go and send an email to wcchl@weavervillenc.org.
Okay. And also another way you can find out about it's also the website, I believe, or information. And again, could you just repeat the website for the center?
The center does not have a website
Oh,
yet.
it doesn't? Oh,
no,
really?
They just have the Facebook page.
Interesting. But if you don't have Facebook, you can get on, as you mentioned, by contact them by email to sign up for the. I'm surprised they don't have a website, but that'll, in your spare time next week, just get on that.
I'll just throw something together for them.
Yeah, just ask La to do that. But that's kind of exciting. So you're writing a column, you're writing for Mountain Express. You're working for the Center of Creative, the Weaveville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. So what do you do in your spare time? When I can look in the back. So you're into, what is it, knitting?
I am. I'm a knitter and a knitting designer as well.
And talk about that. What does that entail?
Well, it entails a lot of knitting.
Yeah, I can see in the back.
But basically what I do when I'm doing my knitting design is I will start to come up with an idea of a piece that I might want to wear or give away to somebody. And then I work my way back from the picture in my head to create a piece. And I'll draft it out, and then I take that draft and I turn it into a bunch of math. There's lots of math in knitting.
How long have you been doing that?
Away.
How long have you been doing that?
I have been knitting since basically 2007. I've been knitting for many years. Since I was 10, I crocheted. Again, because my mother got me into crocheting. And I learned how to knit and crochet at the same time. Crocheting held on until 2007. So I was 37, 38. And then I picked up the knitting needles and started knitting, and it just took over my life.
Okay, I can see it in the background. By the way, I have a story idea for you. I'll share with you. If you haven't done it yet.
Okay.
There's a show with them about a group that knits for kids and hospitals and stuff. Do you know which group I'm talking about?
Oh, there's usually one or two in any area. So which is the one that you're talking about?
I'll get the name and I'll get it to you.
Okay.
But they're showing them recently. Such a fantastic group. Just these women get together, and it's the one out of Asheville. They have about 30 people in the organization. They do such great work to give to the kid, young kids in hospitals and other places as well. So I'll give that to you. Maybe something else in your spare time you can get involved in, or if not, seriously, I think it'd be a great story. So remind me if I forget, get it to you. But this is so cool because now you're giving me ideas to share stuff with you, that just sharing stories. And I think what you're doing at Weaveville Centers for Creative and Healthy Living is just so fantastic because it's still, I think, see if you agree with this, La, but it's still kind of a hidden secret for a lot of people who don't know about it. I mean, everybody who finds out about it, they fall in love with it. You just got to get there and see some of the programs. And you can't beat the price. You can't beat the fact that you can live anywhere and come join you.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I think, really, when they see something that's free, they think it's not going to be
Right.
fabulous. And all of their programming is consistently wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm taking Chuck Fink's storytelling class right now and having a great time and learning this amazing amount of information.
And Leslie, just talk about that. So he's actually teaching a course on how to tell stories?
Yes.
Okay.
He's doing his storytelling 101 class there. And he also teaches it at Poly.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know he was teaching there too. Do you have other people teaching courses there?
There are other people who are teaching different courses. That's the one that I can think of right now, of course, because it's just right here at the top of my brain.
Right.
But last summer, we had a gentleman who was teaching a course about peace. So helping you to integrate peace into your life and finding peace in these turbulent times. And that was a very cool thing. But there are also people who do like yoga. Wendy Lantis does yoga. We have people who are doing, I should have made better crib notes and I just didn't.
Well, okay, no.
Part of being a creativity coach is encouraging people to just bring their own imperfect selves to any situation.
Well, thank you very much for being my guest, because it's really cool, what you're doing out there, and where I love most about it, you're just sharing stories. I think in almost all that you do, you're sharing the stories, not only the center, but your writing and other stuff you do. I love how you tell the stories. I love your enthusiasm, so thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you, Blaine.
Okay, and I look forward to maybe even meeting you. Well, I'll be if you get to Tumo Course, you're in for a treat. So if you get to, I'll say hello to you there. If not, hopefully we'll bump into each other sometime in the near future. And one last time, to get information about the center, Facebook you mentioned, the Weeville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. Or if they don't have Facebook, they can write. What was the email address again?
They can write to wcchl@weavervillenc.org.
Okay, I'll compliment you, even though you're not fishing for it, but I do get a newsletter, and it's a really informative newsletter. And it's something, what's nice about it, you don't overwhelm me. So like you said, it's not every couple of days, twice a month, but it's just really good stuff. And so whatever you're doing, please keep it up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, nice speaking with you.
Nice speaking with you.
As I kick, let's see if I kick you out of the studio, if you don't leave on your own, I'll welcome our next guest, and she'll be with us in just a second, I think. And as my next guest is working her way into the studio, Dora will be with you in a second. I should mention to folks that they're watching or listening to Blaine's World podcast, and we're heard at least once a week, if not more than that. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, you name it, you can find us. And as I mentioned that, especially glad to welcoming our second guest, and she is a friend of mine, Dora Winquist. She's founder and CEO of the Soul. I love the name of the company, the Soul Institute for Quantum Living. And before we go any further, Dora, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching you. Okay, and that is Dora. I'll have to ask you, before you ask you anything else, I love who's your friend in the background?
It's a Kuan Yin statue that's been with me since probably early 2000, and I've moved around many different states and many different locations, and she's beautiful.
Oh, I just love it. Wow.
Thank you.
I better not let my wife see this show, because she's going to want this as well. It's just, that's her kind of thing. Adora,
I love it.
Adora is an internationally recognized healer, teacher, speaker, and aromatherapy pioneer. She's known for establishing one of the first brands to conceive aromatherapy and energy healing on a national scale, evolving it into a world-renowned, award-winning company. She's worked with many individually, globally, many veterans, trauma survivors, hospice and HIV patients, and to men and women looking to empower their best lives. And so the first question I ask Adora, as I typically ask a guest, is, as a young woman, you grew up where?
I grew up in Schenectady, New York, which is outside of Albany, definitely upstate, not by the city, a bit in the snow belt. Okay. And I spent my first 18 years there.
And when you grew up in the snow belt of New York, did you always know you wanted to be into the field of aromatherapy?
Well, I'll say this. For much of my youth, particularly in the summer, we had a camp up in the Adirondacks, and I spent a tremendous amount of time out in nature, walking through the woods and playing in the streams, picking flowers, swimming. And I felt much more at home in nature with the trees and the flowers and the water than I did anywhere else. And so it really provided me with so much solace. And then flash forward to a few years later when our family dinner would be over and it would be time to clean up. And I would raise my hand, excuse myself to the restroom, where I would spend probably the next hour or until everything was clean, mixing my mother's expensive perfumes and powders and lotions. And so I think those were my early days as a chemist or mixologist.
Did you ever find out you were doing this?
No, not until I confessed as an adult.
Well, we'll talk about then for the benefit of the folks, including even me, who've heard the term aromatherapy, but they don't know exactly what it is. So
Sure.
what is it?
So aromatherapy is the art and science of using pure essential oils, which are the extracts produced from aromatic plants. So, for example, some of your viewers might have seen a small bottle, very expensive, that is used by drop. And each one of those drops in a bottle of pure essential oils is filled with a full range of chemical constituents. And some of those chemical constituents may have an affinity with a certain part of our physical body. Some might be nervine in nature, right? So bringing relaxation to the nervous system. Some might be an anti-inflammatory from their chemical constituents. So excellent for not only relaxation, but things like muscular discomfort or even headaches and other aspects of nervous tension. So each one of those drops is filled with a range of chemical constituents. Especially consider the rose, right? Such a beautiful, beautiful flower, highly esteemed, incredibly coveted. But each drop of rose essential oil can have up to 300 different chemical constituents, which makes it just impossible to replicate in a lab. And so many of us that feel as if we have smelt true rose essential oil really never have, because it's one of the most often adulterated essential oils. In fact, I actually happen to have a bottle of pure rose oil from Turkey here, and this probably goes for about $600 to $700.
I was just going to say that. Well, tell me how you got smart about this whole field.
Well, it really started in my late teens, and I actually started with herbalism. I was 18 and I was living away from home, and every year I would get bronchitis brought about from allergies. In fact, as a child, I was rather sickly, and I would spend a couple of weeks in bed every year because I had such a brutal a cough from the bronchitis. And at this point, at 18, I didn't have health insurance and I didn't have a lot of money. So the one thing I did have, I had heard about herbs. So I went out, I was living on Cape Cod. I went out, I bought a book on herbalism and 5 different herbs: hyssop, thyme, eucalyptus, licorice root, and fresh ginger. And I went home, I studied and created a formula and made my own tea, and was amazed by how quickly I healed. In fact, that recipe, I've had so many people ask me through the years. It's actually in my first book that came out last year in July with my publisher in the UK. And that book is called Detox, Nourish, Activate: Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love. I also have that recipe on our blog too. So for your listeners that don't have the book, that want a respiratory formula from herbs, can find that easily.
By the way, you just stop you a second and mention that very nice offer you made. So they said they can find it on your blog, or they can find it on your website as well?
Yes.
And what is that, if you would?
thesoulinstitute.co.
Okay, so soulinstitute.co. And that'll get them, if they go there, what will they find aside from that recipe?
Oh, so many things. Right now, you can sign up for a wonderful free ebook, 8 Essential Oils for Emotional Resilience. So it will have a profile for 8 essential oils and how you can use them to uplift your emotions. And because of the incredible power of the sense of smell and the connection between our olfactory sense and our brain, but specifically our amygdala and limbic system that regulates so much of our physiology, specifically mood, memory, and emotion, when we have the right essential oils in the right formulation and we inhale them, we can literally transform how we feel in the moment. So the essential oils in this regard really become a tool of empowerment to uplift our emotional well-being and increase our emotional resilience.
Now, you mentioned folks can get this recipe by going read the book or going to the website, but do you also sell it as well?
The recipe is an herbal formula, so I don't sell any herbs in particular, but it's very easy for folks to go ahead online and purchase the individual herbs and make the tea with the recipe, or even go down to a local store, even here in Asheville, to purchase the herbs as well. But for me, the herbs are what brought me to find the essential oils.
Well, I was going to ask you, but finishing up just the oils. So do you still drink that tea? Do you still make it?
I do make it. I do make it. In fact, I was about a couple of weeks ago, I have 2 young girls, and we had a bit of a cold spell going through the house with some coughs, and I was just getting ready to go teach a 4-day retreat at the Art of Living Center in beautiful Boone, North Carolina. And I started to feel a little funkiness in my lungs, and I thought, I have no capacity or bandwidth to get sick. So I whipped up that tea for the family, and of course, like it always has in the past, it works like a champ.
So transition then, as you were starting to do, from the herbs, you had started with herbs, into essential oils. When did you discover essential oils?
So I discovered essential oils in the mid-90s, and it's very interesting because the first oils that I found, which I thought were pure essential oils, were actually fragrance oils. And this is a really important teaching of discernment in this field, because anyone can put something in a bottle and say it's a pure essential oil because it's an unregulated industry. And so it became a journey for me of not just study, because there are some things that you can only take so far by learning in books, right? So I started with those fragrance oils. Once I found out those were not real essential oils, I found a company that said these are the most pure essential oils. I was really excited. I thought I found the real thing. And come to find out that this too was not the case. So this started what is now a multiple decade career in not only the study of essential oils and aromatherapy, but the practice, the formulation. In fact, now some of the early formulas that I conjured, if you will, have now sold over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bottles all around the world, which is a really interesting experience for a gal who grew up in Schenectady, New York.
Go back to something you just said I find very interesting, and that's the idea that so you found this one company and started using their stuff. How do you find out that it wasn't the real thing? And how do other people find this out?
Well, I started by sampling different essential oils. And what you do in this process is you start to build your own lexicon of purity. You start to work with your organoleptic senses, right? The sense of sight, looking at the color of the oil. Of course, the scent of the oil. And And now at this point, when I come across an essential oil that is synthetic, it always hits a certain part of my nose. But this took many years of education, from travel study to places like India and Egypt, to education at Rutgers University. They had an incredible advanced international essential oil program about 20 years ago. And we would be in the lab and get blindfolded and have to differentiate between different species of lavender and authentic essential oils versus synthetic. So the best thing that I can say to your listeners is you need to build your own relationship with the essential oils. Don't take even what's written in a book or what's told to you in marketing speak as a testament to truth. You know, there's a very common marketing term that is called pure therapeutic grade essential oils. Many people believe that's a scientific quality, a grade of essential oils, but it's not. It's actually a marketing term. So again, this is a field where education is paramount, and also to know that just because something is natural doesn't always mean that it's safe. We have to use things in the appropriate context. The other caveat is that essential oils are produced from Mother Earth, right? From the trees, from the flowers, from the fruits, from the seeds, from the roots. And so we're in a symbiotic relationship with Mother Earth in this regard. There's only so much essential oil that's produced every year. And with over 90% of that being produced for the flavor and fragrance industry, it leaves a wonderful question to ask. What is the level of purity of the essential oils that I'm using, that I am purchasing, whether it's at the health food store or your favorite vendor? Because the bottom line is, if you don't have the relationship at the source level where the material is grown and or distilled, and have that knowledge base, think of all of the points that it's going to go to before it becomes a product on the shelf at your local vendor. The concept of adulteration is in its own regard a multi-million-dollar industry.
Go back to something else you said. Yeah, if I can.
Yes.
You also mentioned a term that's thrown out loosely, but you were talking about the term natural, and so people say stuff is natural. And again, the question I have, so how do you know, again, same thing too, somebody can advertise or say wherever they want is natural, but how do you know and differentiate between what is and what isn't?
Yes. And so that is really where you have to build your own experiential knowledge base. One of the things that I say when I'm teaching is go out and purchase a very small amount, a sample of lavender essential oil, not lavandin, right? You have to know the Latin name of the essential oil that you want to work with. So lavandula angustifolia would be the Latin name. So go buy 3 to 5 very small amounts. So you're not investing an enormous amount of money, and use your sense of smell. Start to build the muscle of your organoleptic senses so you can begin to discern the quality. There are a few things that replace the power of experience in our lives, right? And that's why wisdom comes with age. For me, I've spent over 25 years professionally in this field, and certainly hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to educate and experience the essential oil so I can determine what is of the highest quality, right? Because for me, for my clients, the quality is a direct correlation to the effect, to the benefit, especially when we're looking at a holistic healing practice using the essential oils for more than just an allopathic need, or, maybe I have a headache, but no, we're really looking to these as spirit medicine, because each drop contains not only the full gamut of the chemical constituents, but also the vibrational patterning, the quintessence, the energetic imprint of the plant.
Talk about getting smarter about this whole topic. So there are a bunch of ways. One way, for example, they can contact you, or they can, let's start with the Soul Institute for Quantum Living. What will people find there?
Great. So right at the very top, you can sign up for that free ebook that's going to have a wealth of information on those 8 essential oils for emotional resilience. You can also find so much more information and education on our blog. And that's free. So how to search for essential oils, how to blend them safely. I also contribute to a number of media outlets and contribute from the aspect of essential oils, of meditation, of vibrational medicine. And you can find a lot of that through our press page on the website. And in addition to that, I welcome all of your listeners to join our quantum community. Our quantum community is an invitation to all seekers, wherever you are on your path of awakening and self-mastery, wherever you are in the world. And you can join either from a capacity of free membership to different membership tiers. Now, a few things that you will find in the Alchemy Library are 4 pillars of esoteric wisdom and knowledge: essential oil alchemy, crystal alchemy, meditation alchemy, where you can actually listen to the meditations that I do every week for healing, for emotional balance and tranquility, as well as practical alchemy, where you can get a whole host of formulas and recipes that you can make at home, because it's incredibly empowering and beautiful to make your own medicine, because it instills such a sense of self-reliance and self-responsibility.
If I can ask you again, the website for that information is what?
Is thesoulinstitute.co. And of course, if you Google my name, Adora Winquist, you'll find a whole host of podcasts that I've been on, and pressed contributions, as well as more information about the quantum community. I also lead a number of retreats and have a very brand new program that's launching in December called the Love Frequency. And it teaches people how to live, love, and lead through their hearts, the hearts that really are the source of all creation, and how we can come into the embodiment of our hearts as our true Norse.
Talk about that upcoming seminar. So that's going to be said in December. And
Yes.
again, folks can get information at your website on that as well.
Yes, there is information right on the homepage for that. And there's also a number of ebooks that people can purchase there, including the new ebook called The Adora Frequency, which really talks about the pillars and practices of the new program coming out called the Love Frequency. It talks about my journey to healing, and some of the aspects of what it means to really come into our hearts, to be able to heal from the places of pain of the past that we all have, because we've all experienced some degree of adversity in our lives. But when we can let those go and open our hearts to a completely new experience of creation, of living a life of freedom, of wholeness, of fullness, and fulfillment from the soul level, it really becomes such a game changer in terms of how we can live from a perspective of wholeness.
And talk a little bit about then the seminar starts in December. Is that online or is it in person?
So the Love Frequency is a 12-month program. So there are 11 modules, and every month you'll get a new module. It will come through your login. You'll be able to log in and access your course material to do it at your leisure, so to speak. And in that, there'll be teachings, there'll be transmissions, there'll be meditations, and some of the aspects of my published works from the past. And every week, starting the week of 1/11, there'll be a connection call where we'll all come together. I'll do a specific teaching on the Zoom, and then all of the students will be able to share some of their perspectives, and I'll do a live attunement as well. So we really kind of hit all of the points of experiential learning, and also being able to come together in sacred community, but to be able to do it virtually so people can join in from anywhere in the world.
Out of all the stuff you're doing, and certainly a lot of stuff, do you have a preference as to, you mentioned you write, lead groups, you consult. Do you have a preference as to kind of a favorite thing you do?
I love writing. In fact, I'm teaching a journaling 101 course in the first week of December. And it reminds me that ever since I was little, I've written in books. In fact, I had given my daughter my first journal that I found from 4th grade. And, this very sassy younger version of myself who had comments about my teacher from Catholic school and was just beginning to be curious about boys, not sure if I really liked them or hated them. But flash forward to this age in my life, I have so many journals, and those journals became part of the foundation for the DNA book, because I was able to go through over 20 years of client writings, formulas that I've created, feedback from clients through the years from all over the world, travels, and of course, my own insights from my own healing journey. And so what an incredible opportunity we have to memorialize those aspects of our life that come through building wisdom, the building new levels of awareness, because we forget about those in the moment, right? Sometimes we become complacent and we think, well, this is just the way my life is. But when we do an over the shoulder moment and we can look back at the incredible journey that we've traversed in our lives to see how much we've grown and changed and healed, and so many contributions that we've made to the world around us that we forget about. When we can go back and look at those, it's incredibly empowering. And it becomes a way in writing that we can document, we can document our inspirations, our ideals, our ideas, and we can also dream our desires into existence. Because the truth is, our brain can't differentiate between imagined experience and actual experience. So spending more time imagining the outcomes and dreams and desires that are held within our soul, and then putting pen to paper to bring them into material form, is a powerful practice that I think if more of us spent time doing that, our lives would very much begin to embody the change that we wish to see, that we wish to become for ourselves. When I go back and I look at some of the things that I've written at the beginning of last year, and I say, my gosh, these experiences have materialized in my life. What a miracle this is. Right? But we forget about the journey sometimes, because we're always either looking ahead or we're looking maybe further back beyond those moments. But when we can really start to put pen to paper, I think it's a game changer in our personal development practice.
In terms of putting your ideas and thoughts on paper, let me just go back to the book you had mentioned to, and I think that's the book Detox, Nourish, Activate, right? And
yes,
the subtitle, Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love, that you co-authored with somebody else or a couple people.
I co-authored that with Dr. Lulu Shemek, my ally with the plants, and she's a local Asheville naturopathic physician. So that book is really a revolutionary guide to how we can transform our lives using 11 different alchemical interventions, everything from herbs to essential oils to meditation to nutrition to crystals to other vibrational medicine practices, and how we can specifically look at our adrenal system, our heart, and our brain and nervous system to create this new pathway or roadmap for transformation. Um, and it has a play on words of DNA because it's about healing at the DNA level, but in a very systematic way to detox, nourish, and activate. And those are really the three primary steps to living a sustainable life of health and well-being.
How do people get a copy of that book?
So you can purchase on Amazon. You can purchase, many of the Barnes and Nobles have that. If you're overseas, the publisher in London is aeonbooks.co.uk, or you can go to my site to get a signed copy at thesoulinstitute.co.
Okay. And so I just want to conclude by mentioning a couple of things that there are. Again, if folks want to find out about your books, your writing, your blog, I mean, you have about 27 things you're doing, it seems,
Yeah.
simultaneously. I oftentimes ask people such as yourself, so as part of what you do you also have a pair of roller skates to go back? I mean, boy, you're into a lot of different things, are you?
A lot of different things for
Yeah.
sure. And I have two beautiful young girls and a beautiful partner and home. And, I think the truth is that we are capable of so much more than we're ever taught or led to believe.
Okay, and just you being a great example of just doing it, and just getting involved in it. And so I'd like to thank you, Adora Winquist. It's a real treat to again see you. It's been too long, at least
Yeah.
on Zoom. So thank you for being my guest the second half hour on the Blaine's World podcast. I'd like to remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, you can find us. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place, or somewhere online. And Laura, if you would just stay with me a second as we say goodbye. And again, thanks very much for being my guest the second half hour on the Blaine's World Show. Thanks.
Such my pleasure. Thank you,
Okay.
Blaine.
Great.